Welcome to the Human 5.0 Project, the podcast where we cut straight to the breakthroughs that matter, the show where science meets self-optimization. I'm your host, Ultimate Biohacker 10X, and here we break down the real research, real data, and real dosing behind modern biohacking, from compounds and peptides to techniques, devices, lifestyle strategies, and performance protocols. Most people jump in and jump out before they get the gold, so we're keeping it tight and delivering the essential insights you need without the fluff. If you've taken the time to hit play, we'll make sure you walk away with valuable knowledge that can transform your approach to longevity, health optimization, and beyond. You don't need another top 5 supplements list. You need the one upgrade that makes your brain and muscles stop running on fumes. Today, creatine. Not a bro supplement, a bioenergetic weapon. No fluff, just signal. What's up, team? Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Ultimate Biohacker 10X, and this is the Human 5.0 Project, where we cut through the hype and talk human performance, longevity, and biohacking with one rule. Straight facts, no fluff, no scare tactics. Today, we're doing a full breakdown of one of the most studied, most misunderstood, and most useful performance upgrades on Earth, creatine. And if you've ever thought, isn't that just for bodybuilders? Does it mess with your kidneys? Why do some people say 3 grams and other people say 20? Why do I feel mentally sharper on it? Why do some people bloat? Cool, you're in the right place. Quick disclaimer, this is for educational purposes only. So if you've got kidney disease, you're pregnant, have medical conditions, or you're on medications, run it by your clinician. Also, I'm going to talk about research and real-world use, so this isn't medical advice. It's really just a playbook. All right, let's lock in. Creatine was originally discovered in the mid-1800s, old school science era, and it was extracted from meat. That's not random. That's the point. And by the way, plants don't meaningfully contain creatine. If you've ever seen creatine in vegetables online, that came from old lab mistakes and confusion with amino acids that can be used to build creatine, but not actually stored creatine. Just to expound on this, the word creatine actually comes from the Greek root word meaning meat, or kreos. So yeah, creatine literally means the meat thing. But then it got basically ignored for a long time until early 1900s, when some researchers at Harvard found that if animals consume creatine, the muscle levels of it increased. But here's one of the coolest details. They found that wild animals had about 10 times more creatine in muscle than domesticated animals. Why? Hold that thought. Then a little bit later, you get early human work that looked at what happens when humans consume creatine. And even back then, they noticed something interesting. People who exercise seemed to take up more creatine into the muscle than people who didn't. Then it got parked again. Part of the reason? It was expensive and hard to produce, so they just didn't study it. Fast forward to the Olympics in '92, and the British Olympic athletes that won gold casually said, yeah, we were taking creatine. And boom, it explodes into mainstream sports. And I can remember in the mid-'90s when I was even starting to take it through the EAS program that Bill Phillips had been running in Colorado. And that's why the public still thinks creatine is just for muscles, because the first headlines were literally sprinters and muscle, but the story is a lot bigger than that. So let's talk mechanism, but in the normal human language. So your body runs on something called ATP, and that's your energy currency. When you burn ATP, it turns into ADP, which is the used up form. And to keep functioning, you need to recharge that ADP back into ATP. And here's the scary part. In high demand moments, you can actually run a temporary energy deficit within seconds. This is why high performance output kind of feels like go, 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 and then I'm cooked. Well, creatine solves that gap. It flips between creatine and phosphocreatine. And phosphocreatine is a creatine with a phosphate added. And why that's important is because phosphocreatine can donate the phosphate to ADP and turn it into ATP pretty quickly. So creatine is basically your energy battery, your rapid recharge system, your energy shock absorber, your don't crash yet buffer. And now the wild animal thing makes complete sense. Because wild animals have to sprint, fight, escape, hunt, and survive. They live in energy spikes. Domesticated animals live in energy flatline. So creatine matters most in tissues that use a ton of energy, have fluctuating energy demand, and that's the key word, fluctuating. So yes, muscles, but also brain, heart, reproductive tissues, and kidneys. High energy, high variability. Now here's where this kind of gets fun. Your brain is an energy monster. And when brain energy is low, you don't become dumber. You become more impulsive, more reactive, more emotional. When the brain has enough energy, it can run higher level software, better executive function, better self-regulation, better focus, better decision making, less, I don't even know why I did that behavior, right? So creatine isn't just a muscle supplement. It's a bioenergetic stabilizer. And there's research showing that higher dose creatine can actually improve performance, particularly when the brain is under stress, like sleep deprivation. And that tracks with real life. Bad sleep night, travel, jet lag, high cognitive load, exam week, crazy work stretch, emotional stress. If your energy's fluctuating, creatine's a buffer. So dietary creatine is basically animal flesh. Yeah, technically animal foods broadly contain some, but if we're talking meaningful amounts, it's mainly red meat, fish, and poultry. And poultry has less than red meat. Eggs and milk have tiny amounts, but you need absurd quantities to match supplemental dosing. So if you want supplement equivalent creatine from food alone, you're basically looking at pretty much regular red meat intake. Look at rough real world anchor. I'd say a pound of red meat can land around a couple of grams of creatine, and it varies by cut and cooking, etc. But this matches what a lot of people notice. Most people aren't eating that consistently, and even if they are, the body is also losing some creatine daily through breakdown into creatinine and excretion. So baseline normal living might be your body makes some, your diet adds some, but many people never reach tissue saturation. So let's look at this dosing war. 3 grams, 2 grams, 10 grams, 20 grams. We'll settle the internet fight right here. So why do lifters say 3 to 5 grams? Well, because that's often enough to saturate muscle over time for many average people. Why do biohackers and cognitive nerds push the higher dose? Because brain effects often show up more reliably when you see higher doses, or you're in a stress state like sleep loss or heavy mental work, or you're trying to move creatine into like a hard to reach tissue. Two main strategies here. A loading phase, which would be fast saturation. Maybe take 20 grams a day, split into 4 doses, and you do that for 5 to 7 days. And then maintenance at 3 to 5 grams a day. Then there's the no-load method, which would be slow saturation, where you do 3 to 5 grams a day. You get saturation in 3 to 4 weeks for most people. What's the ultimate biohacker 10x practical take? If you're new, start simple. 3 to 5 grams a day for a week, then decide if you want to go higher based on goals and tolerance. If you're chasing brain benefits or running hard, many people experiment with 5 to 10 grams a day. Higher intakes are usually split to reduce GI drama. And yeah, women may benefit from higher intake than the old bro dosing guidelines, partly because of differences in baseline stores and fluctuating energy demands across the cycle. And you know the cycle I'm talking about. Again, individual response varies. So let's look at sleep debt, travel, and why creatinine actually feels like a resilience pill. And there's a reason creatinine pops up in sleep deprivation discussions. When you're sleep deprived, your brain is running on low charge, creatine can actually help close this gap. It doesn't mean creatine replaces sleep. It means it can reduce performance drop when energy is compromised. And people talk about creatine with travel and jet lag for the same reason. Travel is a giant stressor, plus sleep disruption, plus weird timing, plus metabolic hit. Creatine is a buffer. Let's address the main complaint. Creatine makes me bloat. Two things can be happening. One, cellular hydration, which is good because creatine can pull water into muscle cells, and that's partly why performance improves. But some people interpret that as bloating. Two, GI tolerance, which is manageable. If too much creatine sits in your gut, you might get a little discomfort. Fixes? Start low, ramp up. Split dose if you're going to be going higher. Mix it well. More on that next. Try a different form if a specific product wrecks your stomach. Also, the scale can mess with your head early on. So if you gain a little weight initially, it can be intracellular water, not fat. Stop using the scale as your emotional support animal. Use performance, measurements, and how you feel. Okay, kidneys and creatinine, probably the most misunderstood lab marker on earth. This needs to be said clearly. Creatine is converted into creatinine as a breakdown product. They are not the same. Creatinine is often used as a lab marker related to kidney filtration. So people panic when creatinine rises. But an increase in creatinine doesn't automatically mean kidney damage. It can reflect more creatine intake, more muscle mass, more muscle turnover, or hydration changes. That said, if you have kidney disease or you're being monitored, do this responsibly and involve a clinician. There are other markers like cystatin C that some clinicians will use when creatinine is a little noisy. Bottom line, for healthy people, creatine has an enormous safety record in studies, even at higher doses. For kidney disease, don't wing it. Just get medical oversight. Here's a simple and practical trick. Creatine dissolves in water, but warmer water seems to dissolve better than ice-cold liquid. So if you're mixing it into an ice smoothie and it's kind of gritty, yeah, that's probably not ideal. If you want to do an easy daily ritual, use coffee, tea, or warm water. Put the creatine in, drink it, simple. And if caffeine and creatine scares you because of old claims, real-world use and later research doesn't support the idea that they don't mix for most people. If you personally get jittery or weird, adjust. Let's look at magnesium and creatine, the underrated synergy here. This is a sneaky important one. Magnesium is required for ATP function in general. ATP often operates as a magnesium ATP complex, and it moves phosphate groups around. The whole creatine phosphocreatine system, okay? So if you're low in magnesium, and tons of people are, your creatine system isn't running at full efficiency. So creatine and adequate magnesium is a smart combo. How about methylation and creatine and TMG? So your body can synthesize creatine using amino acids in methyl donors. You see where I'm going with this. Methylation status matters for endogenous creatine production. Well, TMG, or trimethylglycine, also called betaine, that's a methyl donor, and people use it for performance and methylation support. There is a nuance here. Some compounds can compete for transporters or absorption timing. So practical move, don't obsess, but if you're taking big doses of both, you can separate timing by a few hours. And if you're new, start with creatine first and keep it simple. Also, quality matters. Powders are much better than gummies most of the time. Let's be blunt. Creatine is sensitive in certain forms. Creatine in moist environments can degrade over time into creatinine. That's one reason creatine gummies can be sketchy depending on manufacturing, storage, and how long they've been sitting around. Powder is usually the most reliable form factor. And beyond form factor, quality control matters. If you're buying mystery powder from the absolute cheapest listing possible, you're taking a trust fall into manufacturing. Pick reputable companies that test raw ingredients and finished product. Okay, women, pregnancy, teens, and kids. We'll start with women. Many women report better training output, better mood stability, better resilience during cycle fluctuations. Consistent daily dosing tends to be easier than trying to time it perfectly to phases. Pregnancy? This is where I get conservative in language. There's not a giant pile of gold standard human trial data here. So labels often say don't use in pregnancy because of regulatory and liability reasons. But mechanistically, pregnancy is a high energy state, and diet patterns, especially vegetarian vegan, can reduce creatine intake. So if someone is pregnant and considering creatine, involve a clinician, have the discussion, consider a conservative approach, and don't treat a podcast like your obstetrician. Okay, teens and athletes. Creatine has been studied in adolescents in sports context and is widely used in real life. But for minors, don't freestyle megadoses. Involve parents, coaching, and ideally a clinician if there are medical issues. Kids, if we're talking children, that's physician territory unless you're doing something extremely conservative for dietary support and you've got guidance. So here's the Ultimate Biohacker 10x creatine protocol, simple and realistic. It's the don't overcomplicate it version, if you will. If you're new, 3 grams a day for 7 days, then 5 grams a day ongoing. Evaluate your energy, your focus, your training output, your GI tolerance. If you're a hard charger, heavy training, brain demand job, 5 to 10 grams a day, split it if needed. Keep it earlier in the day if it affects sleep. If you're using it for sleep debt and travel, then take it consistently leading up to travel and/or keep dosing steady during the travel window. If you get bloating, reduce dose, split dose, warm liquid, ramp slowly, and that's it. Creatine isn't magic. It's not steroids. It's not a hack. It's a correction for a common modern problem: high demand and low buffer. If your life has energy spikes, training, travel, stress, cognitive load, creatine helps you hold the line. So if this episode's helping you, share it with somebody who's tired, foggy, overworked, or training like an animal. This is Ultimate Biohacker 10X. Upgrade your ATP and you will upgrade your life. Stay strong, stay consistent, and stay optimized. And I'm out. Thanks for listening to the Human 5.0 Project. If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who's ready to elevate their biology. Make sure to follow the show for weekly deep dives into peptides, protocols, devices, lifestyle strategies, and the science of high-performance longevity. Until next time, stay curious, stay optimized, and stay 10X.